Good morning. Welcome to Ramblings with Joe. So let's talk about religion. You know, there's a few things at work that you never should talk about, and religion and politics are two of the primary ones. All it does is bring a lot of animosity toward the people around you and to yourself. So normally at work, I don't talk about that kind of stuff. Not normally, ever. I just steer clear of it because I don't want to make anybody angry at me about anything. But today's topic is going to be the church of I don't know, which is the church I belong to. And I'd like to put a statement out there that a lot of people don't like me to say it, but I'm going to say it. And that is, religion led me away from itself. Religion taught me not to be a member of any religion. And I'm good with that. I'm happy with that. I'm a good guy. I am not an atheist. I am a person who believes in the Creator. I am. I was raised Catholic. I'm trying to get past the idea that I'm using the word raised. So I was raised Catholic. I started my Catholic training in Bangor, Maine, when I became a cognitive thinking individual. When I was in Bangor, I think I started Bangor when I was in first grade. And at first grade, you start learning and you start comprehending what's going on around you instead of just experiencing it. You start storing it away in your mind. And that's where I started my education in the Catholic Church. We started catechism in Bangor, Maine, when I was very young. And the vast majority of the people I knew around me, and I believe the vast majority of the people in Bangor, are Catholic. So I started that particular adventure into Catholicism in Bangor, Maine. And you know, at that age, you just kind of accept everything as fact. So everything that the nuns and the priests were feeding me, I got to remember this. I got to remember this because this is all important. This is all true. And I did. I took all that in. So I was accepting all of this as fact. And I kept it as fact for a long, long time. And Catholicism was the answer. It was the only way. Then we moved to Georgia. My grandparents lived in Georgia, and we came down here to be near them when my grandparents in Maine passed. So in 76, we came to Georgia. I'm sorry, it might have been 77. I remember that the bicentennial had just happened. So it may have been, I think it was 76. We came to Georgia. It was also the first time I spent any time away from my parents. Now, I went to a place that we called the Funny Farm. It was just another friend of my father's house that was out in the country. We lived in Bangor in the city. That was the first time I experienced anything different in faith. They were still Catholic, but they practiced differently. And that was something I didn't know could happen. I didn't understand that you could do the same thing toward the end that you're seeking and do it in a different way. I was kind of stunned. I was also in the just left the 6th grade, and I was kind of stunned. And when I came to Georgia after that, it was a culture shock, complete culture shock. I was not prepared for it at all. The small town I lived in had 3 primary religious beliefs that everybody followed. Catholicism was not one. You had the Baptists, Presbyterians, and the Methodists. And the Catholicism, we had one church in that town, and it was small. And people came from towns all around it because there just wasn't that big a population of Catholics. So that was kind of a huge culture shock. It was unbelievable to me that this was allowed to go on in the country, that we were letting these people go down the wrong path. Of course, I was young. And I had been convinced that Catholicism was the one true church. That was kind of a wake up to me that, oh wow, there's lots of different beliefs in this world. Now, at that age of 12, 13 years old, you kind of play team religion, you know? And unfortunately for me and the rest of my family, rest of the community was playing team religion as well. And the Protestant, it's built into the word Protestant. They're protesting something, and you'll never guess what that is, the Catholic Church. So I was not embraced by my fellow students as someone who they could become very close friends with until I got to high school. And in high school, my ostracization, it changed. I had met him before, but I grew closer to a gentleman, and he was Methodist. And we talked, and we became fast friends. We became best friends. And he took me down some roads that I hadn't been aware of. And I was talking to his dad in the kitchen of their house, which he lived in a church-owned house and on a campground, actually. And it was an interesting conversation, but it ended with probably the wisest thing that any preacher has ever told me. Reverend Smith, who's passed many years ago now, he told me, he said, well, Joe, because we'd had a long theological conversation, he said, well, Joe, I think what this comes down to is we're all trying to get to the same destination. We're just taking different paths. And that stuck with me. That still sticks with me. I can still hear him say it. It rang true. It had that tone of that guy's saying it, but it's coming from a greater source. And it stuck with me. We are on a path, and we are all trying to get to the same destination, but we're all on different paths. So I continued to go to church, and I actually thought about becoming a Catholic priest. And it's very attractive when you bought into the idea that this is the one true religion, and it is hard to let go of. But eventually, well, after finding out that there's so many other choices in the world, and then going into I joined the Navy, discovered girls at a young age, as young boys do. They discover, oh, look, there's a whole other opposite sex, and they sure are interesting. And if I become a Catholic priest, I'm sure not going to be able to hang out with those people anymore. I gave up on the Catholic priest idea, joined the Navy, and in the Navy, I lost my faith. Didn't just lose my faith. People say that. People say I lost my faith, but that's not really what happens. What happens is you choose to not believe anymore. And some people say that atheism is very difficult to maintain, that you have to really try. I did not. It was easy for me to maintain because I said one day, you know what, this is all bunk and I'm just not going to fall for it anymore, and I walked away. Well, eventually I started being curious about some of these other religions that I am now being exposed to, because in the Navy, you are forced to work with people from all faiths, and you are forced to hang out. So hanging out with all these different people of different faiths really brought me some understanding about where the different faiths are. Number one, a lot of them believe if you don't follow their faith, well, you're going to hell. We got millions of people in every faith looking at the other faith saying, you're all going to hell. And the other faiths are looking at their faith saying, you're all going to hell. I don't buy into any of that at this point. So I started to explore their faith, just out of curiosity mostly. I wasn't even trying to find a faith. I think I may have been trying to find a community, because I definitely miss the community of the Catholic Church. That's something that can be very attractive to anybody, to everybody. If you miss that situation, if you miss going and being around people, and I was very shy, so that was really my only source of community. I delved into all kinds of different faiths, and I would ask questions of everybody. Then I ran into a guy who I will always consider a friend, even though we're not in touch anymore. He really reinforced the idea of atheism, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I caught on to that, and I grabbed hold, and I said, yeah, that's right. This is all bunk. And I was right to walk away from it, and I just need to let it all go. And I did. I let it all go. It wasn't part of my life anymore. And I found other communities to join. I never stopped looking the whole time I was in the Navy at what these other religions believed. And it was interesting, but it was interesting on an intellectual level, not on a faith-based level. I've been baptized more than once, tried different churches. I have tried different, I have delved into some cults. Never joined a cult, never participated in one, but I've checked them out. I've gone to what we would call a service, but what was really just a aren't we great situation. And nothing ever felt right to me. So I stayed an atheist. Choice. For a while I was an anti-theist, and I tried to convince people you need to walk away from your religion because you're wasting a lot of time and effort. And eventually I realized, wow, what are you doing? You're trying to make these people's lives worse. And I quit that because truly, a lot of these churches provide community that as human beings, everybody needs. So I left that alone. I walked away from that. I'm not an anti-theist. I was for a few years, but I'm not an anti-theist. So I lost my faith in the military, and that's where I kind of came out of the military without any faith. I was a boomerang adult. I would leave home for a while and try and get on my feet, and times were hard, and I'd go back home and live with my parents for a stretch. And my dad actually didn't ever want me to move out because he had the idea that him and mom were going to travel a little bit, and I would watch the house, which for a while I did. I think I lived there for a couple years while they did this. During that time, I became friends with one of Dad's Army buddies' children, grown man at the time, and he was LDS. And I eventually started driving over the road, trying to get a hold of, figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And eventually I started driving a big truck over the road, and we had a lot of conversations on the telephone about the LDS church. He was obviously, still got a little bit of a scratchy throat. He was obviously trying to convert me to Latter-day Saint. And I had no intention of becoming a Latter-day Saint, but I did want to hear, what they believe, because that's one of the faiths that I hadn't explored. A lot of good people in the Latter-day Saints. They have a huge community at this point. And it was very interesting to talk to him. It led to some very serious falling outs between us because, well, I like to probe and figure out exactly where everybody stands. And this church has secrets. And any church that has secrets, I don't like. I think that if you have secrets, that you're kind of doing the carrot and stick thing. You're using the carrot, and you're trying to say, if you come to the next level in our church, we're going to give you this carrot. And you'll have, the Church of Scientology, the LDS. I'm sure that most churches do this, but I'm not a big fan of secrets. If you know me, you know that. And I wasn't interested in that. So I left that behind, and we don't talk, that guy and I, anymore. But I did find out a lot about myself and about that church and about generally how other churches are structured. Because while we were talking, I would go online and investigate what the LDS church was about and what other churches were about at the same time. I was searching. I didn't know I was searching, but I was searching. I was trying to find the truth. Lost that guy as a friend. And it's kind of disturbing to me, but it is what it is. Went to living at my parents' house, and I was going to bed. My brother had a waterbed, and he had left it at my parents' house while he was living somewhere else at the time, and I was sleeping in the waterbed. And one night I'm asleep, and my parents are home at that time, and they're in their bed, which is half a house away. In the middle of the night, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, I am dead asleep, laying on my back in the waterbed. Someone comes into my room and pushes down on the middle of my chest, right on my heart, and pushes me so hard that I can feel the wood. Someone has snuck into my room and is pushing down right on my heart. And they are pushing me down until I can feel the wood of the floor underneath the waterbed. Now, they only did this for like maybe 2-3 seconds. And of course, I am wide awake trying to reach out and hit anything I can, and I'm not hitting anything. So it lets go. And I stand straight up in a waterbed that you almost always have to roll out of to get out of. They have, back in the day, they had these padded edges so that you could actually get out of the bed without rolling across raw wood. I jump out of the bed. I mean, I'm out of the bed in like a half a second, and I'm running over to the light screaming, about to go to war. I got my war cry on, and I throw the light on, and I turn around, and I'm ready to take out whoever came into my bedroom and is messing with me. I don't care if it's a family member or a burglar. They're going down, man. And of course, the room's empty. The only person in the room is me. The door is closed. The light switch is next to the door. The door hasn't opened and closed. It's just me. I'm the only one in the bedroom. Of course, my parents are screaming, "Are you okay?" And I yell back, yeah, I'm sorry, go to sleep. And the next day I tell them about this, and they tell me it was probably just a nightmare. It wasn't a nightmare. This happened. And this was something that I needed to happen. I just didn't know that I needed to happen. The entity, we'll use that word, the entity that pushed me down, I don't know what its intentions were. I had one friend tell me that it was an angel trying to wake me up, and I should go to church with him. I had another friend tell me that it was a demon trying to steal my soul, and I needed to get to his church. That would be the LDS church. And get that straightened out. What a conundrum. Still everybody thinks they're right, and still everybody's trying to draw me into their church. What was I to do? You know what I was going to do? And what I decided I would do at that point? I backed up. I took 2 steps back. I think in life, if you take a couple steps back when you're trying to make a huge decision, it gives you a minute to breathe. It gives you a minute to look around. It gives you a minute to decide what's the best path. The best path. So these 2 people are telling me these 2 things, and I have to make a decision, but I don't. I don't have to make a decision. That is a false dichotomy. That is something that's a bit of a straw man on both their parts. What I can do is say, I've been given a wake-up call, and I'm no longer an atheist. The atheist part left me the night that it happened. I sat on the edge of that waterbed. I had a long session of theological examination. What am I to do? I have been an atheist now for years, but this just happened. It just happened. This is not something that was imaginary. I didn't have a nightmare. It wasn't a dream. This happened. When I hit the switch and looked back at the waterbed and went around the room, the waterbed was in motion. There were waves, and I'm sure that they were caused by me getting up, but I've never seen the waterbed have this big a wave. How did I stand up so quick? There's no way to stand up in that waterbed that quick. It just wasn't possible, but I did it. And I think I could stand up so quick because when whatever released me, I had that momentum of coming up from the floor, which means that the water was up and around me. And when it let go, it pushed me up. And I was able to just come right up. And I came up. I went down. I had a baptism of waterbed. I went down an atheist. But the truth is, I stood up a believer. And a scared believer. Because there were choices. There were lots of choices. So many choices. I knew at that point there was good and evil. I understood that. And I knew that there was a creator. I understood that. This was personal. This was something literally touched me and said, you better wake up. Was it good? I don't know. Was it evil? I don't know. What I do know, and what I did know then, is I was given a second chance. I was given a chance now to do the right thing, to figure this out for myself, to find the path that I needed to be on. And I hadn't found the religion yet that I wanted to be a member of. because religion kept leading me away from itself. It was a difficult time. It was an awakening. And it was a time in my life where I was, you would think that you are more focused. And I was more focused, but I was also more lost because I was trying to figure out, where am I supposed to be? Which one of these people trying to convince me that their church is right is the right church? And how am I supposed to figure that out? They're all standing up there quoting scripture, so I had to stop. It was so difficult at this point because now I'm sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm praying. Don't get me wrong. I'm praying to the Creator. I'm begging for mercy and I'm begging for guidance. But man, what am I supposed to do now? How am I supposed to figure this out? Well, I did. I figured it out. And I didn't intend for this to be a cliffhanger, but if you'll tune into the next episode, I will do part 2 of maybe more parts than just part 2. But I am convinced that I am on my right path. There are going to be some people very upset at me for putting out this kind of message, but I'm just going to tell the truth. That's all. I'm not going to tell my truth. I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to tell what happened, and I'm going to continue to tell where I'm at. And it may be something that you don't like. Always remember, if everything that you do comes from a place of love, it's very hard to go wrong. And that's where I'm trying to come from on this Friday, this fantastic Friday. And I am ready for a great day. I'm going to go out there and kick it square in the teeth, and I'm going to make Friday mine. And then I'm going to have a great weekend. I'm not sure if I'll do another part 2 this weekend or not, but I definitely am going to finish this. My next few podcasts, or the next one, I don't know how long it's going to take me. That's what this will be. I hope, and I don't do this very often, but I'm going to ask you now, if you want to hear the rest of this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. After I'm done with this and you don't want to hear me anymore, if you want to finish this and then just hit the unsubscribe button, I'm down with that. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to kill some time so I don't wake the wife up first thing in the morning. But I am having a good time doing this. It is fun for me. And I've never really been that great of a journaler. Never had a diary or anything, but I really am having a good time doing this. And if you people don't like it, please don't follow me. Please don't. You know, you can come to the comments and be a hater if you want, but I'm just going to have a good time with you. I'll tell you that straight out. It's Friday. Let's go out there and have a fantastic Friday. I intend to go downstairs right now and get me another cup of coffee, and I'm going to finish it up, and I'm going to have a good day. I hope that you have a good day and a good weekend. I hope you go out and find peace, love, and dream. Until next time, lahi traut.